Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new Elder Scrolls Online special request character build from me, Sherman. Today guys, I bring you the Breton Hero. Now I wasn't really a personal request by a player, but it was more of a request from some players and other people who were all like, man, this would be so cool if we had this build and it would be so fun to play. And yeah, I had to agree, so I went ahead and did it, guys. I put it together and I created the Breton Hero, at least the best I could. Now you got to understand, I'm just doing this based off of like the thematic theme, the fun of it, that kind of thing. Also, disclaimer, this is a role-playing casual play build, not a meta build, so getting that out of the way. And we all know the Breton Hero story about how he basically was cursed by the Daedra and then turned into an undead, and then he was cured of being undead by the sorceress, elf chick, the elven hero, and she killed him to free him, but he didn't kill him. He came back as a necromancer, and that's where he comes into the Elsweyr storyline. Is at that point is he's being transferred by Argonians to Rimmon, and when the dragons show up. So really cool story, love it. The devs, you guys did an amazing job with the cinematics for Elsweyr. Every cinematic has been awesome. The team that you guys have doing the cinematics, they need to make a movie. End of story. Alright, so let's jump into this character build. Starting here, Breton Hero character, Breton Necromancer. 64 points in the stamina, that gives us a 28k max stamina, 21k health, 20k magicka. We do have 1080 stam recovery with a 725 magic recovery, 2,808 weapon damage with a 47% weapon critical, 1935 spell damage with a 39% spell critical. As you can see, we have 16,000 spell resist with 12,000 physical resist. I think there's something wrong with that. Let me go see. I think, yes, there is. I should have known exactly, saw it right off the bat, but I did not. Right. That should be better. A little better. 15,000, 12,000, almost 13,000 physical resist. We are using the Thief Mundus Stone to make our character beefed out with for damage. We do get minor berserk because we are running slime craw, and we do have tri-stat food, so we can take advantage of magicka and stamina and max health. So, just like all my other characters, this is kind of a hybridized character, and it plays like one too. So let's take a look at the gear, starting with the food. So our food that we're running is dubious Cameron Throne, I think. No, tri-stat food. My gosh, my brain is fried right now. So we are running long fin pasty with melon sauce. We do have the warrior power pots. We do have spell power pots, and we do have the tri pots. These all are for playing different roles. Like if we need to play a tank, we use tri pots. If we need to play stamina, more physical DPS, we play the warrior. If we need more spell for healing or whatever, we use the spell power. And that's what those are for. So let's go over the sets, starting with the monster set. And before anyone says, no, I do not have the hero armor for the Breton or the Nord. I only have the elven hero armor. Yeah, I'm irritated by that. So let's go ahead and take a look at the stuff. So our sets are Slime Craw, of course. This is going to give us higher weapon and spell crit. It also gives us minor berserk at all times, increasing your damage done by 8%. This plays really well into this setup. You guys will see why here in a minute. The next set we're running is something a little unique. It's kind of normal, but also very unique for this. We are running Night Mother's Gaze. The reason I chose Night Mother's Gaze is the 2-piece weapon critical, 3-piece weapon, weapon damage, 4-piece weapon critical, and then the 5-piece. When you deal damage with a critical, or when you deal critical damage, you apply major fracture to enemies, reducing their physical resistance by 5,290. This allows us to boost our physical damage really well, and we don't need as much weapon damage in order to pull high DPS. Alright, the next set. This is where things get really interesting. We are using Caloran's Legacy. The same set that we use on the Maelstrom Is it the Maelstrom? No, the Necromancer, the Khajiit Necromancer. I put it on this character. I tried it out, and I just fell in love with the combination. As you can see, spell crit, spell damage, spell crit, and then when you deal critical damage with a single target magic ability, you launch a fire, ice, shock, or disease ball at your target that deals 18,060 damage and applies a status effect. This effect can occur once every 10 seconds. So this thing can do a lot of damage because of the way we have this character set up. And it is awesome. Let's go over the traits and enchants, starting with the monster set. We are running Invigorating on the helm, Reinforced on the chest, and Invigorating on the legs, all with tri-stats in them. The reason why is the Invigorating gives us higher stamina recovery plus magic recovery. Being a Breton, you do get 100 magic recovery, so this allows us to have a little bit more mag recovery in our characters. And then with the way we have the characters up, we have 1,080 stamina recovery. Now going over the other stuff, the smaller pieces, we have stamina in all 4 of the small pieces, and they are divines. This is to maximize our stamina pool. But you're going to see something a little different about how we have skills set up, and you're going to go, Wayne, how are you going to get so much damage out of this thing? You guys will be amazed by this. So moving on to the next thing, we have the Caloran's Legacy rings. We have 2 of them, Trirune with weapon damage. And then we have a necklace with the stamina recovery in it, infused. This is how we get the higher stamina recovery, and we get to sustain really good with our stamina because we don't use a ton of stamina abilities. We're using a lot of class abilities. And that's where things become interesting, because our class abilities mostly do magic, single target magic damage. So it's really cool. On to the weapons. We are using a 2-handed greatsword, the Caloran's Legacy Greatsword Nirnhoned with a disease damage enchant, and then on the back bar we are using an infused bow with a weapon and spell damage enchant. This is how we get our spell damage up higher, is we use the bow to boost that spell damage, so when we're on the front bar we can get higher damage out of our character. So, and there's a lot. Now that you guys have seen that, I do want to show you, I do have dual wield too, and the dual wield is infused disease with an offhand Nirnhoned and an absorb stamina. If you do this setup, you can actually use a magic recovery here, and it works out really good. But for this, I would just leave it the way it is, and you can either run dual wield or you can run 2-handed, your choice. I prefer 2-handed because it reminded me more of how he fought the Nord when they were fighting on the tower, like right outside the entrance, the white gold tower. That's how I liked it. Alright, now let's go ahead and talk about skills. Starting with our class skills, make sure you unlock the class abilities and the passives. Now with this, I went for more Magicka based stuff. So I went for the Glacial Colossus, I went for the Ricochet Skull, I did go with the Stalking Blast Bones, Unnerving Boneyard. I did pick the Skeletal Archer, and then I picked the Mystic Siphon so I can get my Magicka back. This is how I keep my Magicka coming back, and trust me, I never run out. It's crazy. And then Bone Tyrant, I have all the Magicka things unlocked, but I picked certain ones here to kind of reflect how the character was in the video. So we're using Ravenous Golem instead of the Pummeling Golem. This way you can do AoE damage from yourself while you're fighting things. It's not a whole lot of damage, but it is enough that it can add up. Next up, we do have Hungry Scythe. This is a Magicka damage scythe, so this does magic damage. It also heals you on the initial hit, heals you on each enemy hit, and then heals you over time. So this is a really nice one to kind of use to keep yourself at full health. Then we have the Beckoning Armor. We have the Necrotic Potency. This one gives you 6 ultimate when you siphon from corpses, and it gives you health over every 1 second for 2 seconds. And then while you have it slotted, your damage taken is reduced by 3%. Then we have Remote Totem. This allows you to put a totem somewhere out in the area so you can summon it for your allies to give them defensive buffs. And then we have the Empowering Grasp. Moving on to Living Death, we have Renewing Animation. This is the one where you can just revive 3 people, but it also gives you magic and stamina back for each person you resurrect. We also have Resistant Flesh. This gives you resistances for when you cast this ability, equal to the amount you heal, or half the amount you healed for 3 seconds. Then we have Expunge and Modify. This basically allows you to embrace the power of death, removing up to 2 negative effects from yourself and restoring X amount of magic and stamina for each negative effect removed. While slotted, your abilities are reduced by 3%. This actually really helps in certain things. Then we get Renewing Undeath. We chose Spirit Guardian and Mortal Coil. Now, I'm not going to go over the rest of this. Make sure you get the class passives and the skills that you want. Now going over weapon skills. Two-handed, I did take all the two-handed abilities that I felt best reflected the character. Same thing with dual wield. Same thing with bow. Now you guys have your own choices in what you want to do with the character, because remember, everything that I do for you guys with these builds is basically optional. It's just showing you what I use, and then you can go from there on saying, you know what, I don't like invigorating traits, I can change those out for infused, I can use reinforced, Nernhone, whatever I want. It's that kind of build. All my builds are that way. So, but make sure you unlock all the passives for every weapon type that you're using. So bow, dual wield, and two-handed. This can also tank, and it can also play healer. So I'm just letting you know that now. Moving on to armor. Light armor, we're going to take the top 3 passives. Medium armor, all the passives. And then heavy armor, we're going to take the top 3 again. Now moving on to world skills. Soul Magic, Soul Assault, Consuming Trap, Shatter Soul, Soul Summons, and Soul Lock we have unlocked. And then moving on to the Finders Guild, I unlocked the ones that best reflect how I would play the character in different situations. So I unlocked the skills and passives that way. Same thing with the Mages Guild. Excuse the mouse. Having a few trimmer issues here. But go ahead and take the skills that reflect your play style, that kind of stuff. Same thing with the Psijic Order. Do the same thing there. And then with Undaunted, you can take the abilities and then make sure you get the passives. With every one of these, make sure you get your passives. And then moving on to the Assault skills, take the Assault skills that best reflect your ability to play, or what environment you might play in. If you play more in PvP, you might want to get a few more of these, and the passives as well. Same thing with support. PvE, I just take the abilities that reflect in PvE better, or work better in PvE. Now moving on to racials, we are a Breton, because the Breton Hero is just a Breton, so we get Gift of Magicka, or Magnus, which increases our max Magicka by 2,000. We get Spell Attunement, increases your spell resistance by 2,310. And this effect is doubled when you are afflicted with Burning Shield and Concussed. Also increases your magic recovery by 100. And then we also get Magicka Mastery, which reduces the cost of your abilities by your magic abilities by 7%. Crafting, alchemy, medicinal use. This is really good. This is when using potions, resulting effects last 30% longer. And then provisioning, gourmand, and connoisseur. These make your food and drinks last 20 minutes longer. All right. Now we're going to go over the skills we have on the bar. Now remember, you don't have to use these same skills. You can change it up to anything you want. But remember to have a Magicka ability for the Caloran's Legacy, because in order for this to proc, you have to deal critical damage with a single target Magicka ability. And that's the reason why I use some of the skills I do. So starting with the first ability, we have Wrecking Blow. This does a lot of damage. It also grants you Empower on your next light attack. So you're going to Wrecking Blow, light attack right afterwards anyway, so it really plays into that well. Next, we have Ricochet Skull. This does a decent amount of flame damage. Every third cast of this ability deals 20% increased damage and will bounce up to 2 times to other nearby enemies, but it is considered a single target ability. Next, we have Carve. This is a just clean cut through enemies ability. It hits a lot of them. Can hit up to, I think it's like 6 in a cone in front of you in 7 meters, and it will apply to a bleed over time that deals X amount of damage over 10 seconds. Next, we have Stalking Blast Bones. This one, summon a flaming skeleton from the ground. After 2.5 seconds, the skeleton runs after the target and explodes. When it does, when it gets close to them, dealing X amount of flame damage to all enemies nearby. This is considered single target, by the way. It does do damage to multiple targets, but it mainly goes after the one target, and it's considered single target, and can also proc tolerance. Every second skeleton spins chasing its target increases the damage of the explosion by 10% up to a maximum of 50% more damage. Always cast this when you're getting near a mob, not like right at them, because that way it'll charge them and then it'll explode. Next up, we do have Rally. This is to give us major brutality, increasing our weapon damage by 20% for 33 seconds. You heal for X amount of health every 2 seconds, and then and an additional amount of health when Rally expires. The final heal is increased up to 564% in proportion with the length of time Rally has been active. So we want to keep this going as much as possible. This is what gives us that greater oomph of survivability, and it makes it harder for them to kill us. The next ability we have is Flawless Dawnbreaker. This one, arm yourself with Meridia's Sacred Sword and dispense her Retribution, dealing 10,000 or X amount of physical damage to enemies in front of you and X amount of damage over 6 seconds. While slotted, your weapon damage is increased by 5%. So that's why we have that there. And then moving on to the back bar, following in kind of the idea of the character itself, we have a bow, and we use Rearming Trap. This does... basically, it places a trap down in front of us. It does X amount of damage when it activates. It does X amount of damage over time. It also immobilizes the enemy for 6 seconds. Not bosses, not elite mobs, just anything else. And it grants you minor force, increasing your critical damage by 10%. And then after the being triggered, the trap resets and can be triggered one more time. So this thing actually has a 12-second length of time it lasts. Next up, we have Venom Arrow. I know a lot of people are going to say, why didn't you use Poison Injection? It's considered like an execute. The reason I use Venom Arrow is because Venom Arrow can set enemies off balance, interrupt them, and stun them if they're casting. So this is a great way to take advantage of that skill to do that, to stop those enemies from doing that. It does do X amount of damage up front and X amount of damage over 10 seconds. Really good. Then we have Endless Hail, which does pretty much X amount of damage over every 0.5 seconds for 10 seconds. So another really good one. Then we have our Unnerving Boneyard. This does X amount of frost damage over 10 seconds, applying Major Breach and Major Fracture. It can consume a corpse on cast to deal 20% more damage, and then an ally standing in the graveyard can activate the Grave Robber's Synergy, dealing X amount of frost damage to enemies in the area and healing you for the damage done. So that's a really cool ability. It's a synergy, it does damage, everything. Next up, we have the Mystic Siphon. This does X amount of damage over 12 seconds to all enemies around the corpse, between you and the corpse, and restores X amount of magicka over 12 seconds while siphoning the corpse. While slotted, your damage done is increased by 3%. This is really good on the back bar. The reason why it's really good on the back bar, it makes all your skills on the back bar 3% stronger. Then we have our Ravenous Goliath. This thing is just like in the trailer. He transforms into this huge bone Goliath. Every light attack, heavy attack he does, he heals himself, and then you deal X amount of damage to nearby enemies every second and heal for that amount. So you're doing damage and healing for that amount. And then on top of that, you get 30% max health and 30% healed immediately as soon as you cast it. And it lasts for 20 seconds. This is the ultimate I use most of the time. I don't even worry about Dawnbreaker, because my guy is using a two-handed sword. He's just like a beast. Alright, so now that I've shown you guys the skills, everything, I am going to go over CP really quick, and you guys are going to see I have a pretty standard setup here for CP, like most of my other ones. I did it again, didn't I? Yes, I did. I need to fix something. See, I keep thinking it's light armor, and it's not, it's medium armor, and that's why the resistances were so far off. There we go. 15 and 15. So I can take a few points out of there, which I will go ahead and do. I will take a few points out of that. We're going to go ahead and take the 8 out of there, and we're going to put the 8 into here. That way we have a little bit more spell resist than physical resist, but as you can see, 15,000 and 15,000. This is really good. I do want to mention this. I do have a heavy chest, reinforced, and I am wearing a light belt. So everything else is medium. So people ask me this all the time to show that, and I keep forgetting to do that. So, but there you go. It's a medium build. Now, going over the CP, we have 56 in Ironclad, reducing damage taken from direct damage attacks by 20%. We have 30 in the medium armor focus, increasing physical resistance by 2692 while wearing 5 pieces of medium armor. And then we have 8 into spell shield, increasing our spell resistance by 811. That way we have more into spell resist than we do physical. And we actually do mitigate more damage this way. I've been doing a lot of testing with this to make sure. So, moving on, 31 to thick skin, reducing damage taken from damage over time effects by 13%. We do have 43 into hardy, reducing physical poison disease damage by 10%. 43 in elemental defender, reducing flame, frost, shock, and magic damage by 10%. And then moving on over here, we have 40 into bastion, increasing the effectiveness of your damage shields by 16%. 19 into quick recovery, increasing your healing received by 5%. Moving on to the green tree, we have 40 into warlord, reducing your break free cost by 16%. 16 into sprinter, reducing sprint cost by 10%. 16 into bashing focus, reducing bash cost by 10%. And then in the middle green tree, we have 75 into mooncalf, increasing your stam recovery by 14%. 43 in Arcanist, increasing your mag recovery by 10%. If you wanted to, you could put this up to 75 and this one at 43. It really wouldn't change too much. You'd probably go to 900 and something stamina recovery, and maybe around 800 magical recovery. Moving on, we have 40 into tumbling, reducing our dodge roll cost, by 16%, and 40 into shadow orb, reducing our block cost by 16%. Moving on to the blue tree, we are hybridized. So we have 43 into blessed, increasing your healing done by 10%. We do have 23 into elfborn, increasing your critical damage and critical healing done with magic abilities by 10%. 43 into elemental expert, increasing your flame, frost, shock, and magic damage done by 10%. And then over here we have 35 into physical weapon expert, increasing the light and heavy attacks of two-handed, one-handed sword and shield, dual wield, and bow by 20%. And then we have 40 into master at arms, increasing your damage done with direct damage attacks by 16%. 43 into mighty, increasing physical poison disease damage done by 10%. 23 into precise strikes, increasing critical damage and critical healing with stamina abilities by 10%. And then 20 into thaumaturgy, increasing your damage done with damage over time effects by 9%. So we get that really good balance of damage stuff. So now I'm going to show you guys two quick parse. I'm going to do a quick parse on this little guy, and then a big parse on the big guy to show you how effective this can be. So, potion, trap beast, and I keep doing that too. And I forgot to do my rally. That's okay. I'm just going to kill him. So, 21,000 here. I have gotten up to 25 on him. So, that's 21,000. That's 3,911 weapon damage on the front bar. Or on the stamina side. And then on the magicka side, we go to 2,387. I know it doesn't seem like much, but our crit is 39.5% with a 70% crit chance. And we do have a 6,780 spell penetration. So, it actually comes out pretty good. We do a decent amount of damage with some of our things here, like our ricochet skull doesn't do a whole lot, but our skulking bones and then our boneyard doesn't do too bad over time. It gets better though. So now let's see what this thing does on the big guy, because this is where things get really interesting, because I didn't realize I could pull this off. This time I'm going to switch to this. And instead of getting the higher weapon crit, or physical damage crit, I'm going to get higher spell crit. And then I'm going to also be getting higher spell damage, because I am going to use Rally. Now I'm going to use Wrecking Blow. Ah, I keep missing that. But I can get about 30k out of this thing. Sometimes even more. Just depends on how I have it set up and how I run it. But it's actually kind of fun. I do like this build. And it's really interesting when you do that. When you do either the spell or the other one. If you do it this way. Excuse me. I gotta wait until I'm out of combat. Let me grab a quick drink. Alright. So you can see we go to 34, 38, and we go to 4,579 weapon damage. If we didn't have, if we were using the power pots, we'd actually get higher weapon crit, and our spell crit would be about 50%. So, and we get about a 3,000 spell damage. It winds up being pretty good. So that's why I like this setup. It's a lot of fun. And now, excuse me. I don't mean to keep coughing, guys. Allergies suck. That's all I can say. No matter how much allergy medicine I take, it doesn't seem like it wants to ever go away. Alright, I'm going to teleport over here to Depths of Malatar, show you guys what this thing looks like in a dungeon. This is normal mode, just so you guys, so I can be clear on that. And it's just showing you how well it can solo play. And that's it. I'm not even going to change anything. I don't need to. This thing's just a monster and a half.
Your notice it abandoned, as in no one left inside.
Actually, no, I am going to change something. I'm going to get rid of this. I'm going to put my bone armor on. And then on the front bar, we're going to switch out the carve for that. And you guys will see why. We're going to pop rally, back bar, potion. Just die. Die. I don't like you. Oh, they all died. What do you know? Ugly. It's time to come out and play. He got me. If I had a shield, I probably would have survived that. But it is really fun. It is a lot of fun to play this build. And like I said, somebody said, Sherman, you're going to do it. So, and they were right. They already knew I had something up my sleeve. And I do really like this build. I think that it works out really well, and I think that it fits the whole Breton Hero kind of thing. You don't have to call it a Breton Hero. You can call it whatever you want. This is just the idea. Those are the attribute points, skills, traits, Mundus Stone, all that kind of stuff. You guys get the whole gist. But that is the Breton Hero build. I hope you guys liked it. I do. Pretty sure most of you will. But yeah, and that's it for the video. So you guys know what's coming next. If you like this video, hit that like button. If you guys want to see more videos by me, you can subscribe. Other than that, I want to thank you all for watching. Until next time, have a wonderful day. And this guy might see you in game. Bye.